Hello, Queestians, and welcome. We just want to tell you real quick about Audible and the great deals that you can get on us. A free 30-day trial with a book. All you have to do
is go to audibletrial.com/queer. So how was your week?
My week was good. There wasn't a lot, just I worked a lot. I work in retail for my day job, and we're getting ready to go into Christmas preparations already.
Oh, do you already have your Halloween up?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Yep, already have the
You
Halloween.
know what's so funny? Smell.
What?
Do you smell it? Probably not yet.
No.
I lit a,
What?
I lit a pumpkin spice candle.
Where? Upstairs?
It's on the stove.
Oh, okay.
It just probably hasn't, resonated yet.
I have had pumpkin spice coffee already, and
Wait,
I
wanted to
love
buy
it.
David's. Oh, you got it at, a Starbucks or something?
No, we bought it at we got in the Dunkin' Donuts pumpkin spice.
Oh.
And so I bought it, as soon as
Like
I
a
opened
package
the box.
of it?
Yeah. And it's delicious. It's amazing.
I wanted to buy David something pumpkin spice, because he can't have coffee. So
Yeah.
I was trying to look for,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what else they have.
Well, everything.
Yeah,
Literally
I was
everything is
looking-
pumpkin spice.
They didn't have anything at Stop and Shop, though. So.
Oh, well, then you need to come to my location that
I should
want
visit
to
you
go.
at work one day.
You should. You should. No, we have pumpkin spice Kellogg's, pumpkin spice Pop-Tarts, pumpkin spice granola bars. Whatever is pumpkin spice, we have it. It's good. So you should come check it out. But other than that, I didn't do anything. And I did go to a nice, it's an LGBTQIA fitness boot camp. It was a free boot camp in Rhode Island. So if you live in the area, there is a trainer that has been offering some free boot camps for queer individuals. At least they're trans masculine, they're queer, non-binary, and yes, and a certified trainer. Very good boot camp. I've been to a lot of different things like that in my life, and they did a very good job. It was a good group. It was out in the park. It was really nice. So
how can we find? Is there a web page for it?
I don't know if there's a web page, but if you are on Facebook, you can go to. What is that?
That's letting me know somebody's moving by my front door right now.
Oh, okay, good. But
this episode is brought to you by Ring. Not really, though.
Yeah, so if you go to Facebook and you go to Alien Athletics, that's it. Also, if you follow us on our social media, I try to post whenever there's activities for any queer.
You know what we need on our
activities.
website? We need a calendar.
We do. That is a good point.
And we could, anytime we see that Worcester Pride. I mean, really any prides. We could probably just... There's probably a way we can accumulate all the prides, what they're doing, and probably just put them on there for all over the country.
Yeah, just so people know what's going on in their communities. Also, if people arrange... If you're listening and you're arranging face-to-face meetups, which we've been really pushing, you can let us know and we can put that on the calendar too. So you're like, hey, we live in Michigan and we're going to do a meetup the first Thursday of the month. We can post that on there. So
that'd be great.
Yeah, just resources.
So Evan does a monthly transgender meetup, and I would like to try to do an all-inclusive queer community meetup.
Yeah, just if you want to meet us, or if you already know us and you just want to hang out with people in the queer community that's not at a bar, which it's fine, but there's just I feel like everything is at a bar.
Yeah, we could do a dinner or a weekend lunch.
You just can't talk to people. Brunch. People love brunch. You can't talk to people in a bar. It's nothing wrong with it, but it's just the whole queer community revolves around bars and clubs, and it would be nice to just
loud.
Exactly. It'd be nice to just go and talk to people. So if you're looking for friends or support group in the area and you live, like I said, in or around Rhode Island, check us out. We'll be putting that up on the calendar once we get that loaded. This idea that just popped into our heads. But what about you?
So I left the house, everyone. I know you're so proud of me because I'm proud of me too.
Very proud of you.
I went to 2 drag shows. The first one was a drag brunch in Newport at the Parlor, hosted by the Trailer Park Girls. Yeah. And the second one was yesterday, which was, at the time of recording, the 24th. Friday evening. It was called Bragging Rights in Providence. It was hosted at the Columbus Theater, and Ninny Nuthin, who is also a Trailer Park Girl, was crowned the winner. So that was actually really fun. We also got our house insulated.
Ooh.
What is happening?
I don't know. Okay.
We got our house insulated by Rise.
Yeah, so I don't have to stay busy in this area. So a couple other things which we talked about on our last episode, but we really got it rolling is our Patreon page is up.
So we're working really hard to bring content to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So what we decided on is it's going to be kind of like a premium content-based model. So our podcast is going to remain 100% free.
Yep.
Every single week. You will never be charged to listen to an episode of our podcast. However,
yes,
if you would like to listen to more of our wonderful voices and learn our views and opinions on modern events, modern topics, this week we're going to, when this episode goes live, we're also going to release our first 10-minute talk, and we're going to be covering the Catholic Church, the current conspiracy around them.
The current scandal with, all the sex scandals that are breaking, and also, of course, the fact that they're blaming homosexuals for their...
men
issues.
Violating teenage women.
Yeah.
And boys too.
Boys too.
But
for men violating children, somehow
yes.
That's the gays' fault,
right.
Of course.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're going to be giving a lot of personal opinions. So this podcast is generally more fact-based and more knowledge-based. That's going to be very opinionated and our views on the world, basically.
Just perspective.
And then Evan's also going to share his transition updates, and we'll share little, 5-10 minute clips into our life. We're not really going to have a consistent schedule with those. Those are just going to kind of be as events happen in our life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just other little. If you want extra content, if you want more of us, this is a way that you can do it, and it's really simple. Like there's tiers start at $1 a month. There's $1, $2, $5, and $20.
Yeah,
and it's not like if you lock yourself in, you have to do it forever. Obviously, there's not like a set thing. You can do it for 1 month. You could do it for 6 months. You could do it for a year. But every little bit helps us. Our goal in the future is to provide a physical center for queer individuals to go, to host support groups, to have more podcasts, to have more education and learning, and
to help create a place where people can go on a regular weekly basis.
Yeah.
And get support and really feel like they have. As a queer person, you get to pick your own family.
Yeah.
So I really want to have somewhere where people who feel like they can't do that right now have access to that.
Yeah.
And they can come by on a weekly basis. Just drop in and say, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
And really just have a family setting.
Yeah.
Where support is available not 24/7 because I gotta sleep, but 7 days, I don't know.
It's there. It's a place to go because face to face, and we talk about it, but face to face interaction is so important. It really is. The internet is great. Obviously, you're listening to this podcast. It's wonderful the outreach that we can have with people, but isolating yourself when you're going through a hard time is not healthy. And you have to, and so this is a way. Hopefully, we can provide more support. I know that for me, finding a support group when I started my transition was like. That's why I was able to come out, because I had this place to go. And so it's about coming out. It's about having support when everything's go wrong with your family, with your job, with your partner. It's about providing support for partners. It's about all of that. And of course, it's about educating and changing, continuing towards this progressive path of equal rights for queer individuals.
Mm-hmm. And it's also good for mental health. Mm-hmm. Just not only the support and comfort, but your mental health. I've personally battled with depression, and I know that anytime that I pulled myself away and kind of didn't interact with people, things always got worse. So just having a place to really just having people to talk to in a face-to-face environment and feeling that genuine human connection is so important, and we really want to help bring that to people.
Yeah. So that's our goals. That's what our Patreon page is for. So if you're donating to that, you're donating to the queer community. You're not donating just to Paul and I.
Oh, no. The money doesn't go to our pockets. The money goes to
the community.
Exactly.
So anyway, check out our Patreon page.
And real quick, for anyone who's thinking of donating and you don't have much, and you are embarrassed or you don't want to do the $1 a month because you feel like you should do more. If right now we're at about 1,000 Twitter followers, if every single Twitter follower donated just $1 a month, that's $1,000 a month, which would allow us to do a lot for the community.
Exactly. And like we said, it all goes to the community. So $1 goes a lot farther than you think. And, whatever you can give whenever, But that's so our Patreon page, go check that out. That's at
patreon.com/yourqueerstory.
Exactly. And you can find links to that on all of our social media site. Remember, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, whatever social media. Any social media, you can go and you can find us on there. And if you want to meet us face to face and you live in New England, we are going to be at Worcester Pride on September 8th,
Yep.
Saturday.
Worcester Pride, we'll be there.
We've got a booth set up. You can meet Kelly Square there. She's a well-known drag queen who got her start in Worcester. And so you can check her out there. We're also going to be taking people's stories. If you have a story that you want to share, we ask you to contact us because we want to set up a couple private interviews. But also we will be taking people's stories at the booth, so you can drop by. We take your story. If you let us take your picture, and that'll end up going on our Instagram wall.
Yep. So any picture plus story with your consent will go on the Instagram wall. And if you if you don't really want to do a picture but just want your story out there, we would like to, at the end of every podcast, start kind of telling stories. Mm-hmm. It would be nice to share someone's story at the end of every podcast. So we're trying to get more stories now. So if you're interested, I know a lot of people have said they're interested in sharing and they just haven't gotten back to us yet. Yeah. So whenever you have that 5-10 minutes, just shoot it to us. It can be, when we say your story, it can really be anything. It could be your coming out story, how you struggled with your family, or how your family, like literally any part of your life that you feel you would like people to know.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be a book. It can be 2 paragraphs and your picture of just like where you are, and like, like Paul said, whatever is important to you, we just want to share people in the queer community, to encourage others.
Right. The more you see out there, the safer and more comfortable you feel. If you're like, oh, wow, it's called social proof. So you see more and more people who are interested in the same thing. Mm-hmm. Or, if you look at our Instagram right now, we have 9 great stories on there. And as we grow, if somebody sees that, they're going to feel confident. They're going to be like, wow, look at all these people. Like, they're living their life. I want to live like that too. So that's the whole point of this podcast, is to build a safe community for everyone in our community.
So... Anyways, but like we said, Worcester Pride, that's in 2 weeks, September 8th, on Saturday, we will have the booth, Your Queer Story booth. So come by, check us out. If you're going to Worcester Pride, you should go to Worcester Pride. It's a lot of fun.
It is. And it's in September, so you get a nice break between the June and September.
Yeah, it's a nice little extra bonus Pride.
Exactly.
Queestians, today we are diving deep into our Queestianity with a story from the Bible.
Oh my God, we did it.
I know you've been so excited. So this is a love story about 2 men, David and Jonathan. But before we begin, we want to make a few things clear. First, we are not attacking any people of faith or people's choice of the religion that they follow. However, as amateur historians, it is important that we state the facts, and the facts are this. The Bible is a series of exaggerated and often flat-out made-up stories. In many cases, these tales of adventures are even copycats of other religious or local legends.
And before I start reading, I want to say... Mm-hmm. So this is the most Bible I have ever read. Mm-hmm. Actually, when I was... growing up, I was raised, I guess, agnostic. Mm-hmm. I wasn't really ever taken to church, and I wasn't really ever taught about religion, but my mom would say things like, like to hint that she had a little religious belief. But I was really not raised any religion, so when I was probably like 12, I was like, I should read the Bible and like educate myself. So I opened to a random page and I started reading it, and I was like, what the fuck is happening right now? I opened to a page, and what did you say I opened to?
Psalms. You must have opened to the book of Psalms.
I opened it and just to a random page because I was like, I don't know where to start. I guess I could have started at the beginning. That would have made sense, but
you never do.
So there was just like chunks of text. There was like 4 rows, 2 columns, and I read one little block of text and I was like, nope, and I closed it and I never looked back.
Yeah.
So,
Whereas I grew up reading the Bible every day, and that is not an exaggeration. I read the Bible every day of my life.
So would you like read it through and then start at the beginning and read it through and start at the beginning?
I mean, there were different ways that you could do it, but yes, by the time I was older, I would have like a schedule. If you read 3 chapters a day, you can get through the entire Bible in 365 days. So
you had it down to a science?
No, there was Bible charts that my church would pass out.
Bible charts?
Yeah, in January you would get these charts where you could track you reading the Bible through.
And did you have to turn them in to like prove you were doing it?
No, you could, but you didn't have to. You wouldn't like get banished or something.
You would just get beaten and kicked out of the church.
No, but they really pushed, like every year there was a push to like read your Bible through this year, and so. And then there were other things too, and then there was always the people that like we're gonna read our Bible through twice this year, and so that was my life. So I'm very familiar with this bitch.
Yes. So a perfect example
of like the exaggeration in the Bible.
So a perfect example of the exaggerations in the Bible is the story of Noah's Ark. In the very first book of the Bible, Genesis chapter 6, we read the harrowing story of Noah, the only good man left on earth. God comes to Noah and tells him to build a boat because God is going to destroy the entire earth with a flood to wipe out mankind and start over, which, is really easy if the earth's flat. Because then like, you can just flood it. Like,
exactly, just flood it, and then we all just float off the sides. Like,
you literally can just... Where am I?
You're right here.
He commands Noah, who is over 500 years old, so his ass is in a wheelchair or is like some fucking crutches at least.
So ridiculous, this shit. When I go back and I read the Bible now, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I thought all of this was real. This guy is 500 years old, and he's
building the biggest ark in the fucking world.
Yes. He's like, alright guys, so here's what we're gonna do.
As he's picking up the plank, his arm falls off just because he's so old. Shit, there goes my arm again. So Noah, who is over 500 years old, according to Genesis 5:32, and his 3 sons. How old were his sons?
I don't know, but he didn't have them until he was 500 years old. So somewhere between his 500th birthday and his 600th birthday, all of this happened. He pops out 3 kids, and then he
had 100 years to do it.
He did. He had 100 years to have these 3 sons. They get about 30 years old, and he's like, okay.
How did he go 500 years without a kid, though?
Fuck if I know, Paul. Fuck if I know.
So he had his 3 sons to build an ark, and that could hold 2 of every single animal on Earth. So the Bible even goes into specific detail on the measurements of the massive boat, and no, they don't make a ship large enough to hold 2 of every animal. In fact, the legendary ark was smaller than the Titanic.
But yeah, somehow God just like called all the animals, all the penguins from Antarctica, and the giraffes, and the lions, and they all came together and they climbed on this boat.
And they didn't eat each other.
No, they absolutely didn't eat each other. But this is all real, 100%, because miracles happen. Anyway, between Noah's 500th birthday and 600th birthday, the ship was completed. God sends 2 of every animal to the boat, then seals Noah and his family inside to await the rain. Another interesting part of the story is that, according to the Bible, no one had ever seen rain before. Somehow, in the thousands of years of human activity, rain had never come. And to quote Genesis 7:11 through 12, I don't think we're going to get to this. Okay. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep opened up, and the windows of heaven were opened, and the rain was upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights.
So he lived his whole life, never had rain, then all of a sudden, so water just starts falling from the sky. He's like, motherfucker, what do we do?
What the fuck? That's exactly how it describes it. Like, people start panicking, and they're like, what is this water from the sky? And
they just start jumping off the side of the earth?
No. I just said it now, guys.
Wait, if the earth's flat, what do you think the people who live at the edge of the earth see?
Oh, they have They have a beautiful, every morning they get to have their coffee.
I don't think the flat earthers thought this out.
I don't think they did. Like, they have the best view.
I live on the corner of the earth.
Let me tell you something. If the earth was flat, you know for sure some capitalist dick would have already established like a string of hotels on the edge of the earth. Why wouldn't you?
The entire
Or maybe it is, and all the rich people know about this, and we don't know because we're not rich. And we'll never have enough money to go sit on a hotel on the edge of the earth.
So the rain's coming. People are like,
the rain's coming, and people are freaking out, and they're banging, and they talk about they're banging on the ark. They're begging Noah to let them in, but Noah's like, I've got all these animals on this ark. I can't be saving human lives here, folks.
I've got me and my 3 sons, and we're going to repopulate.
It's actually one of Noah's sons later gets him drunk and fucks his father. It's a good story in Genesis. So if you really want to go, but
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody. I just find the Bible. I find these stories to be highly obnoxious.
We're not talking about Jesus here. We're talking about Noah's Ark, and it is a fucking fake story, folks. There are so many. We're going to talk in a second. Like, there are so many stories of Noah's Ark in all kinds of religions and cultures. Like, it's a fake story. So if you are a Christian and you're being offended right now, you're probably not listening to the right podcast, first of all. I don't know why you are. And if you're a Christian, most Christians today know that Noah's Ark is not a real story. So we're making fun of the story. We're not making fun of your religion. But the story is fucking ridiculous. Anyway.
So here's the thing. This story is a ripoff from several older myths of a great flood. In fact, flood myths, or deluge myths, as they're sometimes called, are some of the most common creation stories. One of the most popular is the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is much more entertaining than Noah and his sons.
Yeah. The Epic of Gilgamesh is a Middle Eastern story. I don't know exactly where it's from, but it's a whole story of a man going on a long journey. There's a lot of parts of it, but it ends mostly with the story of a flood, and it's basically Noah's story, but with this guy named Gilgamesh. But it's a more interesting story.
Interesting. Unless you prefer the idea of 3 hot, sweaty young men toiling away in the sun. Well, they were already 100 at this time, so I don't think they were young men. They're all on their crutches, like beating the wood with their crutch.
Yeah,
they can't.
That's why it took 100 years, because you try hiring some younger labor.
Seriously. So, in addition to the stolen storyline, geological evidence proves a worldwide flood has never even happened, though there is evidence of a large Mediterranean flood, which could have spurred some of the many, many flood myths. There
was also a lot about how the Ice Age, obviously as it was melting, there was a lot more flooding happening. So I mean, that also is a reason why there could, and it was like a rebirth, right? The Ice Age was a rebirth of life on Earth, and so that could be where these creation myths come from. So it's not completely fabricated, it's just the idea that there was a flood somewhere isn't fabricated, but the idea that there was a 500-year-old man and his 3 sons building an ark to hold 2 of every animal on Earth, that is a complete fabrication.
Right. So these reading these Bible stories for the first time ever, Did you like Futurama? Like that kind of comedy? So there's a new show on Netflix called Disenchantment.
I want to watch that. That's by the same... That's by... What's his name?
That's what it reminds me of. Like the amount of insane... I'm like, what kind of drugs were the people who wrote this on when they wrote it? And that's how I feel about this.
Yeah.
They were
smoking something?
They were on something when they were making these stories, because I'm like... They were fucked up. They're like, you know what else happened? It was a 500-year-old man. And they had...
he was 500, yeah.
It's a great idea. Everybody can live to
And then one guy's, you know what we should do? We should just have his son fuck him at the end of all this.
Yeah!
Okay, Joe, I guess we can throw that in there if you have to. It's like, I think we really should. We should just have his son fuck him.
I never did that, but I think that'd be a great story to throw in there if you guys thought it was a good idea.
If you guys were into it, I totally think it's gay, but if you guys think it's cool, then I'm totally into it. Anyways, but our point in this entire story is simply this. While the Bible may have some good teachings for guiding your life, and believing in a God or Jesus is beneficial and even crucial for many people, we have to accept truth. And the truth is, most stories in the Bible are just fables. And we state that because the topic of this episode is controversial in many Christian circles, which do not want their hero King David tarnished as a homosexual. But there is no reason for controversy, because there is a strong chance David and Jonathan didn't even exist. And if they did, what's so awful about 2 men being in love?
So real quick, when you sent me... So Evan sent me the idea for this episode, and I was like, that's great. And then I was telling my boyfriend David about it. And I'm like, we're going to cover David and Goliath. I said Jonathan and Goliath or something. I don't remember who. But I was like, and he's like, I don't think they were gay. I'm like, well, isn't Goliath the lion? I don't know, what happened. I was like, no. I was like, there must be some homosexual ties there. Like, I don't know, maybe this was a big masculine lion and he was like a gay. I don't know.
Where's this even lion? Where did you get the lion from?
I thought Goliath was a lion.
Oh God.
So he was like, and then I was like, oh, it's David and Jonathan. Okay, that makes more sense.
No, it's funny because I knew that I wanted to do this episode for a while because oh God, I should have looked it up. The Gay 100, I can't remember the author. It's a nice little book of 100 gay individuals that impacted culture and society. Mm-hmm. And the author included David and Jonathan in that because their story, even if it is fictional, has had a big impact on art especially, but just on generations, and it's sparked a lot of controversy for thousands of years.
Oh, by the way, the picture you included in this, I was cracking up on.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we're gonna get to that. I know. We'll get to that. We'll get to the picture.
I'll cut that out. But I had to tell you, I was sitting on the toilet, like reading it, and I was just laughing.
I knew you were gonna like that. Anyways. So, but there's a lot of controversy because, people are upset that David and Jonathan are considered gay, which when we talk, you decide what you think at the end of this episode. But even today, so I knew I wanted to do this episode, and then I'm on one of my little forums, and I'm part of an IFB survivors group for people in the Independent Fundamental Baptist.
Is it a Facebook group or like a forum?
It's a Facebook group.
Okay.
So it's a Independent Fundamental Baptist survivors group, I'm on there, and someone had posted the story of David and Jonathan, and all these people that aren't even Christian, some of them anymore, are like getting offended by this story. And I was like, why does it matter? I mean, they probably didn't even exist, and if they did, what is so awful about them being in love? Like, what is the controversy? So, don't be surprised if you share this with your Christian aunt and she has a heart attack. But
if you've showed any of our episodes with her, she's probably already had one. But I mean, she could live to be 500 years old too. So you never know.
Exactly, you don't know. So if the characters of the Bible are real, it is statistically probable that some of them were gay, bi, trans, queer. And if it's all fake, then making people irritated with this story of forbidden love is just what we're here to do.
Hey Queestians, thanks for listening to today's episode of Your Queer Story. Audible is offering a free audiobook download with your free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service.
I love Audible. I have had my subscription for over 2 years, and it is worth every single penny. I listen to it all the time.
I hate to read, but I love listening to things while I work. Audible gives me the opportunity to listen to the best-selling books while I'm at my computer or driving, and makes the day fly by.
And the best part is that Audible offers a wide variety of queer-friendly books as well. So you can listen to anything from The Queer History of the United States by Michael Bronski to over 200 LGBTQ fantasy novels.
To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/queer. Again, that's audibletrial.com/queer for your free audiobook.
So without further delay, put on your best church bonnet or bow tie or both and get ready for Sunday School Queestians.
Our story takes place in the land of Israel. The nation is at war with the Philistines, and frankly, they're getting their asses handed to them. The Israelites are exhausted from fighting, and the weeks-long battle is at a standstill. While both sides take time to rest, the Philistines begin to taunt their enemies. One Philistine in particular was a formidable foe, and his name was Goliath, and Goliath was not a lion.
No, he was not. He was just a big man.
According to the book of 1 Samuel in the Bible, Goliath was 9 feet 9 inches tall, and every day he would stand at the edge of his camp and yell, "Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me, and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him, and kill him, then shall ye be our servants, and serve us."
But King Saul, the king of Israel, was too terrified of the giant and his army and refused to send anyone out to fight. So day after day the taunts and ridicule continued. Some of the men who fought with King Saul were the sons of a local sheep herder named Jesse, who often sent extra food to his sons while they were stationed on the battlefield. And this was true. This is when battles raged forever. Like the story of Troy, where they're like fucking outside the city of Troy for like years.
20 years.
Yeah, and it's like, God, just fucking raid it already. Why did it take you so long to think of making the big horse? Jesus Christ. So Jesse's youngest son...
Well, it took him 100 years to build an ark. So.
Well, that's true. It took a lot of time to do stuff back then. Apparently, time was what everybody had. They were all dying at the age of 30, but they had all the time.
They were living until 500, so...
I guess. Jesse's youngest son, David, was the carrier of these meals and arrived one afternoon as Goliath was in the middle of his daily challenge. The teenager began to ask why no one was taking up the challenge, because that's what teenagers do. Like, I can beat this guy. I'm not scared of him. He don't scare me. Mm-hmm. And perhaps it was the youthful immaturity or sheer conceit and ignorance, but David offered to fight the giant. Why not?
Right, just,
I don't know how old he was.
If he was a teenager, he was probably like 17. He had like another 483 years in his life,
That's
he had
true.
time.
He did have time.
So King Saul had offered a large reward for any man willing to take on Goliath. In fact, the exact reward stated that the king will enrich him with great riches and will give him his daughter and make his father's house free in Israel.
People were always handing out their daughter.
They were. It was like a currency.
It really was. Whatever it was like, okay, I'll tell you what. You watch the camels while I'm away, and I'll throw my daughter in.
Yeah,
and you know
all
what?
the time.
I'm gonna throw in a bag of gold too, because she's not that great. I'm gonna be honest with
you. That's my mediocre daughter. All the other ones have already been taken.
The good ones have already been married off. This is Susan over here. We can't get anyone to marry her. You watch the camels for a weekend. You can have her. And like, I'm just gonna watch the camels for free. To be honest, Bob.
Where are we at?
We're here,
turn? But even with such a hefty prize, he was still surprised that a shepherd boy would be the one to answer his ad. After some debate back and forth, the king finally allowed David to fight Goliath. Apparently, the shepherd was excellent with a slingshot and even claimed to have killed both a lion. That's where I got it from.
That's where you got it. Yeah.
Yeah. He claimed to kill both a lion and a bear. The boy chose 5 smooth stones from a nearby brook that faced off with Goliath, and the rest is biblical legend. So he took out a 9'9" massive man who killed tons of people with 5 smooth stones from the nearby brook.
Only one, because the first one went right from his sling, and there's a song I sang when I was a little kid.
Oh, God.
And one little stone went into the sling, and the sling went round and round, and round and round, and round and round, and round and round and round, and one little stone went out of the sling, and I don't remember, hit the Goliath in the head, and then it goes, and the giant went down, down, down. It's a good song. Good song. Sing it to your kids tonight. But yeah. David was just wrestling lions and bears out in the wilderness. I don't know. Are there lions in the Middle East?
Lions and tigers and bears.
He said he had killed a lion and a bear. There must be, because there's a lot of stories of lions in the Bible. Anyways, so David and Goliath is one of the most well-known stories, unless you're Paul and don't know anything, in the Bible and around the world.
I'm telling you. Keep reading, but I'm going to look this up real quick.
There is not a lion named Goliath.
I'm telling you, there is.
To this day, it is still used as a proverbial example of someone beating the odds. If you ever hear of a David and Goliath story, that is, like the little guy winning against the big guy.
Yeah, it's a very common thing.
Yeah, it's a common term. However, most people don't know the rest of David's story. He was a very passionate, aggressive, and often violent figure in the Bible. It seems that whatever he did or whatever he believed, he put his entire soul into it. He was a very controversial figure. Don't really like him. As a kid, I loved David, and that's part of the reason why it's a controversy, because the farther right you go in Christianity, the more people worship David. Mm-hmm. He's like my brother is named David after David in the Bible. Yeah, exactly. He's named after David in the Bible. Like, he's a huge figure to far right Christians, but the truth is he's very he's complicated. Like, there's some things that he does that's really good, but there's also some awful things. Like, he has an affair. Well, no, he rapes a married woman and then gets her pregnant, and then when he can't cover it up, he has her husband murdered. So he can just be like, well, he must have got her pregnant. And then he, marries her. Like, he does that later in life. Oh
my god!
But somehow he's a hero. He's a hero of redemption
because he raped a woman. Like that. I mean, like, and he covered it up. That's like what the
raping a woman isn't anything. It's like, oh well, we've all raped a woman, and I guess apparently in the far right.
When you have the president saying, "Just grab her by the pussy."
When you're voting a man that's raped women, clearly how you treat women doesn't matter. But people just see it as a story of redemption because he rapes her and then he has her husband murdered.
But then he marries her.
But
so
then
he takes care of her.
He says sorry. He tells God that he's sorry, and so that just shows that anybody can be redeemed, and that's why we should forgive all the men whenever they make mistakes, because we all fuck up sometimes, right?
After defeating Goliath with his slingshot skills, David returned to the nation's capital with Goliath's head and presents it to the king. It is at this time that David meets Saul's son Jonathan. We don't know much about the meeting, but we do know that the two had an instant connection. 1 Samuel 18:1 writes, "And it came to pass when he, David, had made an end of speaking unto Saul, that the soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul." So, he definitely wasn't gay.
No, definitely not.
He loved it. They basically just said they were soulmates, but they're not gay.
No, definitely not. He loves him as his own soul, meets this rugged young man who's just killed a giant, and instantly is like, I am connected to you.
He's like, you're holding the guy's head? That's pretty hot.
I like my men. So after David had killed Goliath, he runs up and cuts off Goliath's head with his own sword. And then he's just walking around with this thing. This moment was recreated by an unknown artist in 1882 in the form of a stained glass window. The window hangs in St. Mark's Church in Edinburgh, Scotland. The inscription beneath the window reads simply, "The soul of Jonathan was knit with the soul of David." It's just a beautiful picture of the two men hugging and the quote from the verse.
Not long after the two men meet, they have a very intense experience. Then Jonathan and David made a covenant because he loved him as his own soul. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was upon him and gave it to David, and his garments, even to his sword, which one, and to his bow, and to his girdle.
It's a very, you don't see it's not like people do this all the time in the Bible. So people are always like, well, they were just really good friends.
They got naked, and he gave him a sword.
There's no other story in the Bible where two guys are just stripping off their clothes and making a covenant with each other.
And their soul was intertwined.
Yeah, exactly. It's like today when two guys are, it's like if someone sees you and David together and people are like, oh, those fellas are good friends. And you guys are like holding hands and you guys, hugging each other. Like, oh, okay, yeah, no, just a real intense friendship.
Yeah, they're just really close.
You can't assume anything. Okay. Several historians and even queer people of faith have suggested that this covenant was somewhat like a marriage ceremony. We don't know exactly what happened, but we do know that this is one of the most intimate covenants in the Bible. The term covenant means a binding promise, and there are several different kinds of covenants in the Bible. However, David and Jonathan's best fits the marriage. And again, this moment is recreated by artists throughout history.
Around 1505, Renaissance artist Cima de Congliano did a painting that symbolized David and Jonathan's covenant. Though, the two men were fully clothed and David is walking around still carrying Goliath's head for some reason.
And don't worry, we will post this.
This is a great picture. These two are walking around. He kind of looks like he's the guy from Lord of the Rings.
Okay, but this was done in the 1500s.
He looks like Frodo, kind of.
Maybe Frodo looks like him.
Same thing.
Because Frodo came a lot longer after.
Same thing.
Okay.
But, they're just holding this guy's head. It hasn't decomposed or anything. It's perfectly... And he looks so mad.
He's just angry, and Jonathan's walking next to him, looking at him adoringly.
Yeah, he looks really cute. He's like, oh my god.
It's like, hey, David.
That's like the ultimate, feminine...
Yes. It's definitely an adoring stare in the picture. There's you'll see it. I know everyone's like, what are you talking about? But it'll be posted probably with the article and or with the link to our podcast, and it's just the two of them just enjoying a moment. So make sure you go and check that out because it's a great picture, and I just love the fact that he's carrying around the head.
And then who
doesn't like to bring a head on their first date?
But look at, he's like loving, he's like real serious, and then he's like pissed. It's great.
The giant whose head, the giant's pretty fucking pissed. Because he's like, well, first of all, it's bad enough that I got killed by this little fucking asshole, but now he's carrying me around with his fucking boyfriend, and I don't even like gay people.
Probably, though.
So while the two men continued to deepen their relationship, Saul, the king, was sending David all over the country to fight his wars. Because why not? Hey, you killed a giant, you're 17, why don't you go fight for me? As David's name grew, the people began to favor him more than their king. During one evening feast, several women entertaining the king sang the words, we don't know what it was, but we'll make it up. Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
You should be a YouTube singer.
I
Not
should.
a real singer, though, but like you could probably make it on YouTube.
Just like horn in on a Miranda Sings gig that she's got going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't want to say you were that bad, but...
Excuse me? If Miranda hears you, she's going to be really pissed.
No, Miranda's talented. I'm just saying you can never live up to her.
Oh, okay. Well, now you're just being rude. So the king was beginning to be very jealous of David and began to make his frustration known.
In addition to being a great warrior, David was also an accomplished harpist. Not gay.
No, definitely not.
He would often play for the king when the so-called evil spirit came upon Saul.
We don't know what it is, but... Oh, I guess I was to put a side note. But
Side note, if Saul was real, it seems he struggled with some sort of mental health disorder, or he was just a raging egomaniac. Anyway, one night, as David was playing his harp for the king, the story goes, the evil spirit from God came upon Saul, and David played with his hand as at other times. I bet he did. He was gay people usually play with their hand. And there was a javelin in Saul's hand, and Saul cast the javelin, for he said, I will smite David even to the wall with it. And David avoided the javelin twice. So he's like, jump.
And the king sitting over there like, oh, this fucking asshole. And
this
he's
fucking fairy.
Just playing, yeah, exactly. Just playing with his javelin, which if the psycho picks up a javelin while you're playing, that's when you're like, okay, so I'm all done for the night. Anything else I can help you with?
Seriously.
You know, he's just like playing with it, and then all of a sudden he just like chucks it at David. And David doesn't leave the first time. He's like, you know what? It was probably a bad moment.
He probably slipped.
And who brought the javelin back to Saul? Who was like, I'm sorry, King, you lost something. Here you go.
I think you dropped your javelin, sir.
Oopsie.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, we're sitting here saying he's 17 because he's a teenager. But if people are living to 600, teenager might have been like 130 at that point.
That's true. Who knows? Who knows? It doesn't
know.
say. Yeah, he could have been in his hundreds. But despite Saul's effort to kill his young protege because he was grooming David, David continued to stay around the palace, and his love for Jonathan grew. And the king, in what seemed to be an out-of-character gesture, offered his daughter Merib to David in marriage. But David refused.
Which, I don't know, but back in the day in the Bible, like, nobody ever refused a free daughter.
Exactly, from the king.
Right.
Saul's like, why don't you be my son-in-law? And David's like, nah.
Now the little was Saul? Who was Saul? Was
Saul
the
was
son?
the king. Saul was the king.
No, who was Jonathan? Was the son of the king?
Of the king, yes.
Okay, so he's like,
so it's his
I'll be your
sister.
son-in-law, but I want your son.
Like, so Saul's like, so I want you in the family, and David's like, So I was thinking, you can marry my daughter. And Jonathan's over in the corner trying not to cry. Well, if that's what you have to do.
I'll never forgive you, but if you must
marry Merib, then you must. But Saul was not to be deterred. The first book of Samuel makes it clear that Saul wanted one of his daughters to marry David so that he could keep an eye on him because Jonathan refused to spy on his lover, which is sweet. Saul was always trying to get Jonathan to tell him what David was doing, and Jonathan refused.
That's good.
Yeah.
If it was modern, Jonathan would have probably been like going through a cell phone or something.
Exactly.
So, after Merib married off another man, Saul persuaded David to take on another daughter, Michal. David still resisted, but the king would not be turned down again. Not only did he insist that David would marry Michal, but he insisted that David's dowry be paid in and the foreskins of 100 Philistines. But this was not because he thought David was so fond of the penises. Rather, Saul believed that in trying to gather these foreskins, David would be killed and the king's problem would be solved. Yet, much to Saul's dismay, David went out and collected not 100, but 200 foreskins and presented them to the king to take Michal as his wife. You know, he probably went out and was like, went to the local bar. Yep. This was not murder. He probably was like, sup buddy? You wanna fool around? Yeah, I need your foreskin, but I mean, it'll be good afterwards.
I think it should be good before, because do you really...
Oh, yeah, no, that's true. It'll be good before. It's like bleeding.
Like, all right, buddy, time to pay up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 200 foreskins. Why?
Which, by the way, personal opinion coming from a gay male, if you have a son, don't get him circumcised.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
I mean, if you really want to do it, it's your own belief. But coming from an adult...
But should a parent be allowed to make that decision for their kid? I don't think they should. No.
In my opinion, circumcision should be a person's choice when they come of age to make that decision for themselves.
Why are you cutting off part of your son's dick because of your religious beliefs?
You're reducing so much out of his
pleasure. And just because your parents did it to you...
I know you don't want to think of like your infant baby newborn's pleasure... But come on, in the future, you know it's going to happen, so just let him have that moment when he gets older.
Exactly, and all the myths that it's healthier and it's cleaner.
It is, technically, but if you teach your child how to clean and take care of himself, it's fine. If you don't teach him how to clean his dick, it's going to be dirty whether he has foreskin or not.
Exactly, teach your kid how to take care of their body. That's the problem.
And don't be embarrassed. Don't sit there and say, well, I don't want to talk about his penis because that's so personal. Yeah. You need to educate your child.
And regardless of how people look at it... circumcision is rooted in religion. Mm-hmm. You can justify it however you want today, but it is rooted in religion. It is rooted in a religious superstition, specifically from the story of Abraham and the Israelites. And so there's not a real good purpose for it today.
Now, there is some adults whose foreskin is too tight and like it can't retract fully.
Well, if you have to have it for medical reasons.
Yeah, it's a medical concern for a very small percentage
It's not that it's wrong. And if you become a grown-ass adult and you're like, I want to cut off part of my penis, do it. But just why are you making these decisions for kids? Why are we altering their bodies for them? You know, I don't agree with that.
No, I don't either.
And so another excerpt from the Bible, and Saul spake to Jonathan his son and to all his servants that they should kill David. But Jonathan delighted much in David. And Jonathan told David, saying, Saul, my father, seeketh to kill thee. Now therefore take heed to thyself until the morning, and abide in a secret place, and hide thyself. 1 Samuel 19:1-2. Jonathan delighted much in David, but they're totally not into each other.
And by the way, if I would have read that, I would have been like 19:1-2. I would not know what that meant. So, as David was hiding, Jonathan went to his father and begged him to spare David's life. Saul agreed for his son's sake and welcomed David back to the castle. However, just a short time later, David was once again playing his harp for Saul, and the king tried again to stick David to the wall with a javelin. Who keeps giving him this javelin?
I don't know. Like after this, the leader of the house should have been like, "Okay, guys, we're not gonna store the javelins next to the throne anymore. We're gonna move them over here. I just really like the aesthetic of them up by the throne. I think it shows power. I don't care. It's not safe."
The king's just sitting up there. Anytime he gets pissed, he's like,
"Ah!" He's got a rack of javelins, and he's just grabbing and throwing at whoever pisses him off. Like, what the fuck? And what the fuck, David? Again, he picks up a javelin. That's when you get up and you leave.
He's like, you know what? When the javelin comes at me, I get a little turned on.
It probably is. He's probably like, okay, I can duck it this time. And he's just like running away with a raging boner. And he's like, Jonathan!
Your dad tried to kill me again! I'm still here though.
This time, Saul would hear no one's pleas. Jonathan and Michal, David's wife, helped David escape through a window in their chambers. Michal then made a dummy and put it in her bed and told everyone that David was sick and not to go into the room. I swear to God, no, you don't want to go in there. He's got the plague. Don't go in there.
He's got the black plague. We're trying not to spread it around the kingdom.
Exactly. He's got the black plague. He's got the flu. Also, he has a raging headache. You don't want to go in there.
And Ebola.
But But after a few days, Saul was too eager to kill David and demanded that Michael bring him up to me in the bed that I may slay him.
He was like, just drag the bed up here, put it in the center of the room. I'm going to throw my spear at him. I can't miss if he's in the bed.
Exactly. Got my rack of new javelins that just came in.
They're shiny, they're new.
I got them sharpened and I'm ready to go. And when Saul saw that his daughter had lied to him for his enemy, he nearly killed her.
He picked up the javelin, but he was like, this is my daughter, I can't do it.
Yeah, I felt bad for Michael because she really loved David. I didn't put that in there, but it says in the Bible several times that she loved him. And, you know, he was just in love with her brother, but she was just like, but maybe one day he'll feel the same about me.
Oh, you didn't watch The Handmaid's Tale. So,
no.
Spoiler alert. Do you care if there's a spoiler alert?
I don't care if there's a spoiler alert, but if you listen to The Handmaid's Tale...
Fast forward like 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so there's in season 2, do you know Nick? The one that Offred,
that works for the place, yeah.
And lived
she had a relationship
with?
Yeah.
So he is forced to marry, this, 16 or, 15-year-old girl.
Oh, wow.
Because she,
she's fertile?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was, forced to marry her, and she, loves him. Because she thinks she doesn't actually love him, but she thinks she does.
She's infatuated with him.
Right, because she's like, oh my god, this is my place on earth. Because they've been in that for years now, so, she was raised to believe, I'm going to be married to a man, and I'm going to be his wife, and I'm going to, clean and clean and clean and clean. Keep fast-forwarding, and clean and clean, and, he'll love me, and I'll decorate the house, and this. So she's, infatuated with him, and he just wants Offred, because this is, the woman that he actually loves.
Yeah.
And she's, underage, so he feels, really bad about this.
Yeah.
And she's just like, why don't you love me? Why don't you love me? And she you see her crying and stuff and feeling and she's she goes to Offred and she's like, am I ugly? Why doesn't he like me? And I felt so bad for her because she wanted him, but he and he did end up having sex with her because she was like, well, obviously you're a gender traitor, which is the term they use for homosexuals if you don't want me.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, fuck, they're gonna.
I guess
I'm gonna get in
they're
trouble.
Gonna kill him. Yeah.
So he has sex with her, and he feels so nasty about it afterwards because she's underage.
Well,
and,
it's that whole environment that they create, which is what happens when you create bullshit.
All of a sudden, children are being raped because that's what
the Bible wants.
Yeah, and it's okay, Catholics.
That's right. We're coming for you. Yeah, I always felt bad for Michael in the Bible. Even when I was in the cult, reading it, I just felt bad for her because it was even...
Now, when you were reading it, in the cult, did you interpret it that... You didn't interpret it that it was gay, did you?
I didn't, but I definitely was this is a really close relationship. It felt off to me, but they always just, played it up as it's just good friendship.
So how did you know that he didn't love Michael? Does it say he doesn't love Michael?
He just constantly avoids her. He doesn't want to marry her. He's never with her.
Okay,
and he
so
just,
it kind of shows.
It just kind of shows that he's just I married you because your father made me marry you. But she it states many times that she loves him. And she, makes him, come home and sleep with her because he won't ever be home. She just does all these things, And then later on it says that she, turns to hate him because... and
it's unfortunate because he was forced into this.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're forced into a marriage and you don't love each other? Shocking.
Those always go well.
Always.
So, as David hid a few towns away, Jonathan came to see him, and the two devised a plan for the final plea to Saul not to kill David. And as they talked, David says to Jonathan, I have found grace in thine eyes. This is a phrase used to mean romantic love during the writings of this time, according to many biblical scholars. Jonathan responded to David by saying, Whatsoever thy soul desireth, I will even do it for thee. The word it is italicized in the Bible to mean death. So he would say, Whatsoever thy soul desireth, I will even do it for thee, meaning I would even die for you.
Yep. David decided to remain in hiding 3 days, and during that time, Jonathan would try to convince his father to call off his hunt. At the end of 3 days, Jonathan would go to a designated spot and shoot 3 arrows. If they landed to one side of David, everything was safe. But if they landed to the other side of David, he must leave and never return because it was not safe. Clearly, it wasn't safe for Jonathan to be meeting David, as we see from the need to plan such an odd signal.
Yeah.
Now, could you imagine if after all this time he dodged all these javelins, and then all of a sudden this arrow comes flying, trying to go to one side of him, and it shoots him?
Sorry.
It's just I dodged your father's javelins for 75 years.
is what happens. Of course, that would happen. Yeah. So yeah, we don't know
we
like
need to write our own like version of fucking
the Bible. Yeah,
no, of like Family Guy or like Futurama, like something like that. It would be so good.
Yeah, just the Bible, just like but written as the ridiculous nonsense that it is. So they have this whole plan. Like David's hiding out somewhere, like in a field behind a bale of hay, and Jonathan's gonna shoot these arrows. And like it doesn't say where, but like to the right of him, everything's clear, and to the left, you better stay hidden. So for the next 3 days, Saul pressured Jonathan to tell him where David was, but Jonathan would not budge. On the third day, the king erupted and screamed at his son, "Thou son of a perverse, rebellious woman," which I think is Bible for "thou son of a bitch. "Do not I know that thou hast chosen the son of Jesse to thine own confusion, and to the confusion of thy mother's nakedness?" So basically, Saul is calling out Jonathan's confusion over his love for David. It's interesting that it puts it in there. Like, Saul is very...
Okay. Mm-hmm. In my opinion...
Yes.
Not knowing anything about the Bible, but as a person...
Okay.
That gives me a lot of credibility.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
This story is so clearly gay.
It is so...
You cannot... Okay, he's literally said, "I'll die for you."
Yeah.
He's literally said, like, they got naked together.
They got naked and made a covenant together. And this was, like, right after meeting each other. So, covenants were very serious in the Bible. You didn't just hop into them with anyone. So they make this deep, intimate covenant with each other.
Mm-hmm. And they said they find grace in their eyes. And now the father is even calling out and saying, "You're confused."
Exactly.
Which is what not every...
Who hasn't heard that?
Right. A lot of people... pretty much anybody who's gay at least at once in their life, even from a stranger, has just heard, "You're confused. You don't know what you're talking
exactly. About." Yeah, it's like my parents saying to me, "You're confused. You're going through a phase. You don't know what it is. You know, the devil has blinded you." Right? And that's literally... Saul is very irritated with David, and it's not because they have a good friendship. It is because Saul is very angry at Jonathan, and it's not because they have a close friendship.
The dad wouldn't be trying to kill him if he was a friend.
Exactly. The Saul is furious because Jonathan, as he says, "For as long as David liveth upon the ground, thou shalt not be established, nor thy kingdom. Now send and fetch him unto me, for he shall surely die."
He's going to try to throw another javelin at him.
Exactly. So Saul's talking about how David is going to take the kingdom from Jonathan, but the thing is that Jonathan, who was next in line for the kingdom, refused to take it. He wanted David to be king because he wanted to be a housewife. No.
You know what? I would probably have been Jonathan. I would have been like, "You know what? That's a lot of responsibility.
You run the kingdom.
I'll just take, I'll just get to be like the famous person that everybody wants to look at."
That's true. That's
true.
If
you look at the United States, the first person of the United States, because I'm sure there will eventually be a queer couple.
Yes.
So the first person of the United States is always looked to as either a fashion icon or a household name. It's like, I feel like that in history that currently the first lady, but eventually the first person is always kind of, even if not in a good light, they're always
they're already always upheld. Everybody looks at them, just as closely as they look at the president or the leader. So, but the thing is, Jonathan refused to take the kingdom, and his father was furious of it, and he was furious of it because he knew that Jonathan's love for David is what stopped him from taking the kingdom. Mm-hmm. So, and continuing with that, and Jonathan answered, "Wherefore shall he be slain? What has he done?" And Saul cast a javelin at him to smite him. And Jonathan knew that it was determined by his father to slay David, because still haven't moved those fucking javelins.
He just got a box. He goes to the supermarket and picks up a box.
"Ooh, 2-for-1 javelins today? I don't mind if I do."
Might as well fill up the cart.
Him walking around, a javelin sticking out of his cart.
He's taking people.
Oops, sorry.
"Oh, sorry about your bladder."
Someone's "Got enough javelins?" He takes one and throws it at him.
"So you're gonna have to pay for that?" "Fuck you, I'm the king."
Exactly. I don't pay for shit.
So we see now that Saul has called out his son for his love for David, and is so furious with Jonathan that he even tries killing him as well. The next morning, Jonathan went out to the field and warned David to stay hidden by shooting the arrows on the warning side. Later, the two met for the final time. The story reads,
And David fell on his face to the ground, and bowed himself 3 times, and they kissed one another, and wept one with another, until David exceeded. And Jonathan said to David, Go in peace, the Lord be between thee and me and thee, and between my seed and thy seed forever. And he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city.
They were definitely just friends, though.
No, definitely. So, a couple things. So, first of all, they kissed, which was common in the Bible times, but we don't know what kind of kiss. Also, some people think that David exceeding himself means that he came, but I don't really see that. I don't know. It's a pretty emotional moment.
No, they're crying. They're like, we're never going to see
exactly.
each other. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I read that where someone said that David exceeding himself mean that he came, but I don't see that. But yeah, you know,
I mean, unless they had a final
moment.
thing.
Yeah, I don't know. So also, I don't understand the purpose of Jonathan shooting the arrows when he just went and saw David. But whatever. Gotta be dramatic.
Well, maybe
Typical
it was like
maybe
if he didn't see the arrows, he wouldn't have came out.
Yeah, maybe could have been.
So the farewell scene of the 2 lovers is a particular favorite in artists, some going all the way back to the 14th century. This was a very touching moment, and sadly, they would never meet again. Saul continued to chase David, and eventually it led to both his and Jonathan's death. When David found out of his lover's death, he was deeply grieved and wrote out his words in the Song of the Bow. Remember, Jonathan was an archer and had used a bow to warn David to stay in hiding. The final lines of the song read... You can sing it.
How are the mighty fallen in the midst of the battle? O Jonathan, thou wast slain in thine high places. I am distressed for thee, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant hast thou been unto me. Thy love for me was wonderful, passing the love of women. That's a horrible song. Sorry for everybody listening to that. But the last line I want to put, thy love for me was wonderful, passing the love of women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because a woman couldn't give him what he needed.
Couldn't satisfy him. No. Susan Ackerman, a biblical scholar, believes this final sentence is the most striking proof that David and Jonathan were more than just friends. As is the case with most older texts, and certainly ones based on mythology, we do not know the sexual nature of David and Jonathan's relationship. Yet, their deep commitment to one another has inspired artists and writers for centuries. Jonathan defied his father, his family, and his kingdom to save David, and David would grieve Jonathan for the rest of his life. It is hard to believe that a love so rich and devoted would be strictly platonic.
Perhaps one of the most striking points of David and Jonathan's story is that David is often treated as a biblical hero in conservative Christian circles. Fundamentalists who preach against the queer community, protest to limit our rights, and who have even called for the death penalty for homosexual acts, all worship a guy who was most certainly gay, or at the very least bisexual. Either way, it is interesting that a book used to beat the queer community over the head could have such a beautiful queer story within its pages.
But that is all we have for today, though, Queestians. Don't worry about going to church this weekend because we took care of it for you. Our main resource for this episode was, of course, the Bible, the King James Version, if you're wondering. Also, qspirit.net, that's QSPIRIT.net, which is a that we also use that as a resource, and it is a website for queer people of faith. If you are a queer person of faith and you want to check it out.
And our recommended resource actually comes from their site. If you want to know more about homosexual relationships in the Bible, then check out Jonathan Loved David, Homosexuality in Biblical Times by Tom N. Horner. That is considered the textbook of everything biblically queer. However, it's a little outdated, so we also suggest The Prince's Psalm by Eric Shaw Quinn.
And remember to please download and share our podcast. You can find us on any place that you get your podcast. Check out our social media as well and follow us on all our different outlets.
And if you can subscribe to our Patreon page and donate even $1 a month, that really helps us out. And if you're in the area and want to meet us, don't forget we will be in Worcester for Worcester Pride on Saturday, September 8th.
So thanks for coming to church, Queestians.
Try to keep from sinning, you beautiful saphists.
And don't get a lobotomy.
Bye.
Bye.